Everyone is familiar with The Sound of Music as a refined, ageless classic, but what if buried errors were literally in plain sight the entire time? One scene in the film was never cut, and when you point it out, the scene is forever memorable. That tiny lapse is just the tip of the iceberg. From cringeworthy cuts that disrupt the continuity to peculiar details that don't fit, there are startling bloopers scattered all over the movie that mysteriously made it onto the final cut. They're easy to overlook initially, but once noticed, they alter the way you watch forever. The beauty of the film is that it creates a flawless illusion of harmony, but behind the masterfully constructed scenes lies a treasure trove of happy accidents, off-screen wars, continuity mistakes, on-set injuries, improvisations, and even technical failures that now are part of the film's lasting legend. Are you ready to take a closer look? If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Consider, for instance, the very first shot, one of cinema's most famous images, Julie Andrews spinning on top of a hillside, arms spread wide, as the hills themselves erupt into life with music. One glance at that shot makes it seem so effortless, so otherworldly, as if it were captured by accident, but behind the camera it was anything but. In the mid-60s, helicopter-borne cameras were not normal procedure. To get the sweeping motion that is now characteristic of the film, a cameraman was tied to the side of a helicopter as it flew straight at Andrews. Helicopters, lovely in aerial photography, are deafening in real life. The din drowned out every cue, so Andrews couldn't hear when to start her spin or the first notes. The choreographer huddled on the lawn with a megaphone, yelling her commands over the noise, but even then was often knocked flat by the downdraft. Julie would remember in retrospect good-naturedly how she was flung again and again into the grass, spewing dirt and hay, her hair disarranged, her costume mussed, her equanimity thinning. It required several takes, 6 or 7, to ultimately get the one shot the world now holds dear. Even nature itself was unaccommodating. The green meadow where she twirled was on property belonging to a farmer who had initially consented to leave its tall grass intact for filming. But when the crew came to film, they found he had cut the field down, leaving short, less dramatic vegetation. To accomplish this, the crew improvised scenery, created an artificial stream, and even moved trees for improved framing. The farmer grew more and more enraged, his livestock disrupted by the relentless thump of helicopters, the film crew stomping across his fields. And yet somehow, in the middle of all that tension, that one piece of film got taken, and it turned out to be not just a scene, it turned into the picture that immortalized The Sound of Music. What seemed like haphazard magic was really an illusion painstakingly crafted, a reminder that what seems natural on film rarely is. If helicopters were risky, the ensuing scenes brought jeopardy onto the actors themselves. Accidents molded the film in ways that no one in the audience would ever anticipate. The most tragic one involved Charmian Carr, the beautiful young woman starring as Liesl. While dancing the legendary 16 Going on 17 duet with Daniel Truitt in the magical glass gazebo, she slipped on the slick floor. At one stage Carr slipped, lost her footing, and smashed through a piece of glass. She had injured her ankle so badly that it needed to be bandaged, but production could not be delayed. The fix? Makeup and costume camouflage. Carr continued filming with her injury concealed, her movements discreetly modified, her smile unimpaired. To add to the complication, the actual Salzburg gazebo was too small to be used for filming, and so the crew built a larger mock-up of it on the Fox lot in Los Angeles. So what appears as a single, unbroken romantic location is really a combination of European exteriors and Hollywood interiors spliced together. Julie Andrews also put her own improvisational stamp on the music itself. In Do Re Mi, she chose to finish on a note an octave higher than notated simply because she could. That off-the-cuff decision provided the song with one of its most thrilling conclusions. Ironically, years later, a mangled throat surgery would deprive Andrews of that upper range for good, but on screen, it remains eternal. Editing also redefined the movie. Whole sequences, Liesl showing Maria to Rolf, or the captain's solo performance of Edelweiss in the garden, were excised for pace. Robert Wise cut mercilessly, building momentum that imparted its flying energy to the story. Behind the spotless continuity we now see were decisions made out of hurt, improvisation, and stern editorial control. When the film eventually opened in 1965, few expected it to become a cultural behemoth. Early detractors were not impressed, labeling it old-fashioned at a time when Hollywood was moving in the direction of darker realism. But the people spoke louder. It was #1 at the box office within a month, and it would not budge for months. By 1966, it had dethroned Gone with the Wind as the all-time box office champion. The figures were phenomenal: 283 million tickets sold globally, hundreds of millions of dollars, and records shattered in 29 nations. In certain cities it remained on screen for over 4 years. What created this phenomenon? Not just idyllic scenery or tunes stuck in your head. It was the direct emotional appeal of the film: romance, family, bravery, humor, all grounded by Julie Andrews' radiant presence. Parents came back with kids matured bringing along friends, and every screening was a party shared by the community. The songs overflowed from cinemas and into homes, schools, and church basements. Salzburg was a place of pilgrimage, forever linked with whirling nuns and alpine retreats. Despite the skepticism of the insiders, The Sound of Music became a cultural phenomenon, a beacon of hope in troubled times. Casting decisions were crucial. For Maria, Ernest Lehman was adamant there was just one choice: Julie Andrews. But in 1964, Andrews was far from a reliable box office draw. She had just completed Mary Poppins, but it hadn't opened yet. Some executives questioned her photogenic nature, others wanted the more established stars of Doris Day and Grace Kelly. Mia Farrow even tested for Liesl and came close to getting the role. But Robert Wise had seen early versions of Mary Poppins and recognized Andrews' unusual charisma. He signed her at $225,000, a handsome amount but a bargain given that she would soon be earning $1 million per film. Even Andrews herself was guarded. Her first question to Wise was, "How are you going to get all the sugar out of this picture?" She worried that the tale's sentimentality would overwhelm it with saccharine overkill. Wise reassured her that her own down-to-earth sincerity would ground it realistically. She took the job, and history was made. Casting Captain Von Trapp was more difficult. Christopher Plummer first brushed off the role as a cardboard tyrant. He threatened to leave several times. The studio wooed other stars: Sean Connery, Richard Burton, Bing Crosby, Yul Brynner, but none of them were right. Plummer finally agreed only after script revisions deepened his character, showing not just sternness but charm, humor, and vulnerability. He even campaigned for a solo number to reveal the captain's inner life. Though not all his suggestions were used, enough were incorporated to satisfy him, resulting in a performance layered with gravitas and tenderness. His reluctance ironically gave the role more dimension. Filming itself was grueling. The picturesque Salzburg landscape concealed perpetual rain delays. Blue skies on camera were frequently filmed in quick moments between storms. Crews had to transport equipment up muddy slopes in ox carts. Scenes needed multiple takes, occasionally 15 or more, to fit a moving light, wet costumes, or soaked sets. Charmian Carr suffered cold water sprayed from a machine informally known as Mr. Rainstorm, to remain wet for continuity. Julie Andrews was once pulled up a hill in a fur coat in an ox cart to wait for an occasional lapse in the clouds. Christopher Plummer resentfully had his singing voice partially overdubbed, a move that almost caused him to leave. Still, between irritations, the footage came out golden, unblemished by misery just beyond the frame. The love scenes, too, bore their imperfections. The on-screen kiss between Maria and the captain, so sweet and tender, was actually marred by laughter. Every time they bent forward, the arc lights aimed to create moonlight had a peculiar groaning sound, and Andrews and Plummer would burst out laughing. 12 takes were wasted. The crew was getting frustrated, the director angry, until he made the lighting change so that the noise could be covered. The ultimate close-up appears casually romantic, but the actors recalled it as a torture of stifled giggles. Other scenes were downright perilous. During the boat-toppling scene on the lake, the youngest actress, Kim Carruth, who played Gretel, almost drowned. She didn't know how to swim, and Andrews, who was supposed to lean forward to rescue her, slipped backward instead. For agonizing seconds, Carruth struggled until Heather Menzies yanked her out. The footage remained in the film, its realism adding authenticity to the children's terrified splashes. Waterlogged costumes, the children shivered through takes repeated, but the scene glows with innocent abandon. Lighter moments were not without challenges either. The bike ride in Salzburg took weeks of practice on the Fox lot. Each pedal and stop had to be in rhythm with do-re-mi. The marionette puppet show took 3 weeks practice, choreographed down to each string pull. Meanwhile, the children themselves had to undergo changes before the camera. Nicholas Hammond grew 6 inches taller in the course of the filming. Debbie Turner lost 2 front teeth, which were replaced by prosthetics to ensure continuity. Continuity mistakes slipped through. Liesel's placement as she approaches Maria's room varies strangely from cut to cut. The captain drops down a curtain that vanishes in the next shot. His glass changes hand during Edelweiss. Streets are duplicated as carriage rides pass by. Louisa changes sides in a snap between shots after being dunked in the lake. None of these destroys the magic of the film, but once noticed, they are indelible. Editing mishaps crop up too, guitars falling in mid-shot, kids switching positions from frame to frame, duplicated chunks of dialogue. Those lapses remind us of how challenging to shoot musicals over days and places, cutting together unperfect takes. Close calls with casting layered on more planes of what if. Mia Farrow almost played Liesel. Patty Duke and Terry Garr read for the parts. Daniel Truitt, who played Rolf, experienced permanent hair loss from bleaching his hair. Julie Andrews' natural brown hair was colored blonde following a first attempt at a brassy tone that didn't work. Stunt doubles replaced risky scenes, like Laurie Thomas, who had doubled Andrews in Mary Poppins, swinging off a tree branch as the captain whizzed by. Each choice, each concession, crafted the film into what it ultimately was, despite other casting possibilities possibly producing a completely different legacy. And last but not least, there are the gaffes camouflaged in plain sight. The Von Trapp's secret hideaway at the Abbey is not realistic. Level headstones set against a wall do not provide room for bodies. Marta is mouthing lines she does not need to know in My Favorite Things. Kurt lip syncs well after the song is over.